Hello, tubers. Welcome to another Dr. Jet instructional video from deep within the bowels of my laboratory. Today I'm going to do something different. Look, it's not a boat, although I still have boat crap left up here. I didn't clean as much as my shop as I wanted. Actually, to do it right, it's going to take a while, and I need to get this guitar out. This is a pointy guitar. I don't care for pointy guitars myself, but the owner of this guitar really likes it. He has $3,000 American guitars here and there and everywhere, but this is his favorite guitar, a cheap $100, BC Rich Warlock, a pointy little thing. But he's into that kind of music, the screaming demon, humbuckers, real high output stuff. But he loves this guitar, and he loves it so much, the frets are really worn out. I mean, he travels all up and down the neck and wears them out. So what we're going to do today is a fret level, crown, and polish. I think I put this nut on here. I've replaced the nuts on most of his guitars. So I think I can just, because if I did it, it just has one little drop of glue and I can go and it'll pop off. And that way it'll make it easier to level this. We'll pull the neck off. So some people will say, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. The guitar's in tune. You can't just cut the strings. Well, let me tell you, you can. It's a shortcut. It hurts nothing. This is a piece of wood. It remembers where it was when it had about the 250 pounds of pull on it. So what we're going to do now is we'll get rid of the strings. I'm going to edit this video. I'm going to not bore you with the physical steps. I'm just going to show you before and after, and you can figure out how it was done. It's pretty basic. So look how chewed up these are. So hang on, I'll be back. I'll have the neck out here. I'll have the strings gone, and we'll get to work on that. All right, jet out. Okay, welcome back, tubers. As you can see, I have a naked neck here, and what I've done is I've taken my notched straight edge and adjusted the truss rod so that the fretboard is completely flat. Now, once I make that adjustment, you got to let it sit for a while, 20, 30 minutes, check it again, because it takes a while to work out all its kinks. But now that the neck's level, the next thing I'm going to do is, first, sometimes, because I'm going to be sanding these, sometimes this nut gets in the way, and I think this is one of the nuts I made. I've replaced nuts on, all his guitars, and I think I made this one. So if I did, then I can just take a block of wood and go, and it'll come right off because I just have one little drop of glue there holding it in place. So I'm going to pop this nut off, and then I'm going to tape off with tape. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to tape all these frets off, and so I'll bring you back when this is done and talk about the next step. Jet out. Okay, tubers, we're back. So let's see what we've done. Turns out I did do that nut, so it just took a block of wood and this to pop it off. You only need glue to keep it from moving side to side. The strings hold the things down. Oftentimes they won't even be glued. They'll just be pressed into a snug fit. Anyway, I've taped off all the frets. I'll put a piece of tape in and I'd seal the edge here and then take a brand new X-Acto blade, trim it off, and since I'm so cheap, I'd use the trim to fill in the gaps here, or once I was getting smaller, I'd take the trim from this and put it over here, and the trim from this, any way that works. Okay, so now I've got the neck dead level by itself. I've got it on a board. It's fully supported from here to here with one of my Delrin blocks and a couple bits of sandpaper. And I'm going to start off with a Great Plains Easy Touch bar sander. This is for sanding airplane wings perfectly flat. This is a nice aluminum extrusion, and I've got some like 60 grit sandpaper on here, and we're going to attack this. What I've done is I've taken this felt pen and I've marked these frets to highlight up these low areas. You can see this guy was a shredder. The frets in this area, he's bending all these top 3 strings all the time. The guy's a madman, but you know, he can play. So anyway, we've marked it, highlighting the low areas, and what we're going to do is we're going to start off with this, and then we're going to get more and more sophisticated as we go along. This is kind of a rough thing. You want, a lot of guys have actually a radiused block that they can use to do this. I don't, so you just do your best to try and keep a constant radius, but you can see what's going to happen. In this area, the felt pen mark's going to come off right away, and I'm kind of rocking it this way to follow the curvature of the fretboard. You can see that these red areas, and you can see the little divots in there, and so I'm going to cut this one way down before I even get close to getting that one. So we're going to start and not a whole lot of down pressure. Just let the sandpaper do its thing. And this is our rough cut to start with. We're going to get finer and finer and finer and more precise as we go along. This, you'll see what we use for getting the final leveling. But this is good for a rough cut, and look at that. We're going to have to take off a lot of metal. Now you can see the little divots. We're going to have to sand down till they're almost gone, and then we'll switch to finer grades and a better leveling. So until we get to that point, jet out. Okay, tubers, we're getting real close. I thought I'd show you. So you can see I've taken a lot of material off, but there's still some divots here and one here. Now, these upper frets, just by the nature of playing guitar, don't get nearly as much wear as these in here. So as you're leveling things, you're going to find you're going to be taking a lot of material off here. And later on in this, I'm going to show you how I put just a couple of thousandths of a drop off here in these upper frets. You know, for guys that like to bend a whole lot up here, it helps if you just roll that off just like I said, a couple of thousandths. So I'm going to do a little bit more with this, and then I'm going to come back and show you how we start fine-tuning it. Jet out. Okay, tubers, we're back, and look what we have here. We have a nicely leveled to the first rough draft fretboard. You can see there's just tiny little bits of evidence where there was some fret wear, and that's going to be taken out with the next step. What we're using next, this is a great tool. This is a cut-off scrap of granite from somebody's granite kitchen. It cost me nothing. It has what you need, some heft and a perfectly flat surface. So using some spray adhesive, I've mounted 320 grit wet or dry sandpaper on it, and now I will begin ever so slowly getting a nice finish on these frets and taking out the last little bits. And then what I'm going to do, remember I talked about tapering this the top frets off. I'm going to tape it off with some more masking tape from about the 12th fret, and then I'm going to work this sanding block down on this end and kind of let this end ride on top of the tape. And it'll taper this ever so slightly. We're talking thousandths here. So I'm going to work on this. This is going to take a while, and I'll show you where we are when we get there. Jet out. Okay, tubers, welcome back. Look at what we have here. We have this shiny, level fretboard here. And look how nice and shiny and everything looks perfect, except there's one problem. The frets are flat on the top. If this were the fret, and this were the string, it would play one note here and another note there. We want the top of this fret to be this nice crown where the string only touches at that point. So no matter which way things are going, it's going to play the same note. That's what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our handy dandy felt pen and we're going to mark off these flat spots. And then, in the old days, they used to take a three-cornered file that had the corners ground off, and they would very carefully file each side of the fret to crown it. That's a ton of work. And, you know, they made some other little files. We'll talk about this one when it gets here to the ends. But they've come up with these nice crowned files. Here's a diamond file. Here's another style. It's a little diamond file here. This guy is actually a single cut file. This is a better tool. But there are two radii, one for wide frets and one for narrow frets. And so these, you know, one's coarse and this one's fine. And what you wind up doing is working it till this line becomes just one thin line. As you're taking the cut, here I'll show you. As you're taking the cut, you can see portions of it disappearing. So let's just take a little cut along here, and you can see the edges beginning to disappear. So it's a long, involved process. This is why this job is not cheap, because I have to do it 24 times. So I'm not going to bore you with that. You know the process. I'll bring you back when we're ready for the next step. Welcome back, tubers. Here we are about 20 minutes later, and look a here, look a here, look a here. I have one perfectly crowned fret. You can see there's just a little bit of this red line. Now, when you're doing the crowning work, you have to go back and redo that line, because you'll be rubbing it off, you know, to make sure you get it. Because a lot of times you'll rub it off and then you'll come back later and you go, oh, I didn't get this one nearly enough. So you got to keep retouching that line because as you're working it. So there's one, and it takes about 20 minutes. So let's think. 24, there's 1 hour, there's 2 hours, there's 3 hours, there's 4 hours, there's 5 hours, there's 6 hours, there's 7 hours, there's 8 hours. No wonder it costs so much to get this work done. It's really time consuming, you know, to do a good job. So there you go. I think I'm going to make this a 2-part series because it's getting kind of long. This is going to take me forever. I'll come back when these are all looking like this, when I have 24 just like this. Until then, jet out.